chance to hear it, so let her tell it. People on the streets say Sabrina speaks. Tune into the show, she will let you know. Tell all your friends and family. Real talk is no joke. You get the news straight up from grassroots and concerns. You can hear with some people gone. So tell all your friends to tune in to the
Good evening,
show.
Cayman. I'm Sabrina Turner, and welcome to Sabrina Speaks, your daily dose of clarity, truth, and community insights. Every weekday from 5 to 6:30 p.m., we're tackling the issues that affect you, from national headlines to grassroots concerns. Whether you're in traffic or winding down your day, this is your chance to hear it straight and speak your truth. So buckle up, Cayman. We're not holding back.
This is the show. We gotta let you know. Now we got to go.
And now here's Sabrina.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sabrina Speaks. Yes, it is Thursday, and it is a pleasure to be back here with you today. Now, you know that the second sitting of the second meeting of the 2025-2026 Parliament session took place, and so did we. It's day two, and even though it ended just before 1 today, we're here for you, and they will reconvene tomorrow at 10 o'clock as they will be debating the strategic policy statement. But this evening, I aim to dive into a topic that is obviously touching the very hearts of our national identity, and that is who gets to be Caymanian. Now, you probably heard whispers, maybe even some talks about Caymanian status and that a status was granted, and even talking about how it can be revoked or lost. But what does the law actually say, and who holds the power? And what roles does Parliament even play in this? Well, I'm going to tell you, buckle up, because we're going straight to the source. I'm going to share with you on screen today and go in detail because you've been asking for one day dedicated to immigration law. And we're going to go to the source this evening and put our spotlight on the Immigration Transition Act 2022 revision and the immigration regulations as well, and the Cabinet's constitutional authority. Now, in accordance to Section 26(1)(e) of the Immigration Transition Act 2022 revision, the Cabinet, acting on the recommendation of the Caymanian Status and Permanent Residency Board, may grant the right to be Caymanian. But here's the twist. These grants must be presented to the House of Parliament for ratification. And that's what happened yesterday. Now, that's right. It's not just a rubber stamp. It's a legal process and a constitutional responsibility and a matter of public record. Let me repeat that. It's a matter of public record. And this evening, even though I'll be hosting this solo episode will aim to break it all down. The laws, the powers, the procedures, and yes, even the risk of losing status. So grab your pens, grab your questions, and your curiosity. And let's speak truth to the power and truth to the people. This is Sabrina Speaks, Voices of the Islands, Conversations for the World, and the podcast where voices rise, stories unfold, and inspiration takes center stage. The content you're about to hear here, including any discussions or opinions from myself, guests, or participants, is intended solely for the general informational and entertainment purposes. It is not a substitute for professional, legal, medical, or financial advice. So I encourage you to consult with a qualified professional for your specific concerns. Sabrina Speaks and all related entities disclaims all liability for any decisions or actions taken in reliance on the information presented. It is indeed to be your host, and I am Sabrina. But hey, don't forget to follow, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can follow me on Facebook, Sabrina Turner, community activist, also over there on Instagram and YouTube. Yeah, and you can find me also on all CMR, YouTube, Instagram, and CMRTV.com platforms. Yes, but it is a pleasure to be here with you on this Thursday afternoon. And guess what? I got to share this with you. I got a call this morning and it was just full of excitement. And I was like, what the heck? But yes, it is. I'm amazed to share this with you because guess what? International lighting. Yes, huge sale continues. Remember Sunday when they were supposed to have that big sidewalk sale, but the rains, like the heavens open up. Now, due to last Saturday's inclement weather, Edward Miller and his team are keeping the deals rolling at International Lighting. Yes, from clearance deals to door-busting discounts. There are too many items, just like last week, to mention. And the best part is, guess what? Spend $50 or more, and you're automatically entered to win a round-trip ticket to any Cayman Airways destination. Yeah, that's how Edward threw it down. Visit them at 194 North Sound Road, Ed's Plaza. Their doors open from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m., Monday to Saturday. Don't miss your chance to save big and maybe jet off on a well-deserved holiday. Yeah, so go down there to Edward and the crew. The deals continue. No rain is going to stop your opportunity for possibly being a lucky winner of a round-trip ticket to anywhere Cayman Airways flies, and take advantage of this huge, huge clearance sale from area rugs to lighting fixtures, chandeliers. I know he has some beautiful mats. I was there day before yesterday. And those rugs that he gets from Turkey, and also bed and bags. OMG, bed and bags. We all know how us Caribbean people go on when it comes to Christmas. So you can't say, oh, I have to wait for Black Friday. No, Edward is throwing it down now. This is not no scratch and dent. These are all brand new stuff, great deals that are going on, and you want to catch it. You really, really want to catch those deals. So yeah, make sure to visit Edward down there at 194 North Sound Road, Ed's Plaza, for a chance to win, but also to spruce up your space. Definitely. Let's see who's here. Hey, Mitzi, how you doing, my love? Good evening, Marshall. How are you? Damian Henry. Good to see you, Miss Iva. Good evening, class. You're brute. I bet you grab your Milo. You grab your pen. I can hear you laugh out now. Oh, Neil. Good evening to you. You're more than welcome, my love. And guess what? Tonight, graduation, Clifton Hunter is having their graduation, and that's going to start at 7 o'clock this evening. Congratulations to all the graduates as well. I did it up to John Gray High School, and I was like a proud mom that I had one graduating because there were people there that I knew. And for those images that I got, I shared them right here with you. Yeah, I shared them with you. And as a mom, to all the moms, parents, guardians, siblings who actually, and the teachers, of course, who has assisted in getting these young men and women to reach this milestone. Congratulations to you. This is something worth celebrating. And, it's sky's the limit. Let's see what will happen. So that happens tonight. It'll be streaming live on YouTube. CIGTV will be streaming that live for you. So yeah, that's at 7. We did, hi, Barbara G. Good evening to you, my sweet. Let me give you an update on Mr. Santos Flores. Yeah, you may have heard me saying that there was a young man who was going to Indianapolis. Well, guess what? Santos reached. Yes. And he is already getting ready. And this is an image right now. He's reached Indianapolis safely. And he's a part of the youth culinary program. And here we see him in practice under the watchful eyes of the best chef, Peter, in a practical session. And that's one element as he gets ready to prepare. He's preparing for the real thing that's about to go down. And it's just not only practical. There's a theory as well. here he is, still under the watchful eye of Chef Peter in a theory session. Now, for your information, this program is offered right here in the Cayman Islands that gives our high school students hands-on experience in culinary and the culinary field by working closely with professional chefs at the Ritz-Carlton. Now, this is the first time, as Jamo told me, that the Cayman Islands has been invited or have ever presented here in Indianapolis. And they're seeing what we're producing here in the Cayman Islands. And that would not have been possible without the proud sponsorship and the likes of the ministry and Minister Isaac Rankin from Youth Sports and Development, and also the likes of Liz from U.S. Meats Exports Federation. And we got organization and corporate partners like Maples, Ale Thompson's, Home Gas, who's made this happen. And should we have more students or parents who sees this and see these culinary skills in their kids and want their kids to be a part of this event, 345-922-3652 is the number to call. That is 345-926. No, that's what. 922-3652. That's the number to call for more information. I just posted there for you to get more information on that. These kids are ambassadors for the Cayman Islands. They're making their way, and this is where it takes a village to raise a child. Yeah. Now I want to take this opportunity, but kudos to Mr. Santos Flores. Best of luck for you, and we got to keep our eyes on him. We're gonna, as soon as I get the updates, I will. Okay, gotcha. I will keep you abreast of all of the happenings that are going on. Another event that is up and coming, you see me have here on the screen, is the Walk for the Cure event. Now that'll be taking place on Sunday, and that's November 2nd, 6:30. And that's going to take place at the 7 Mile Public Beach. Now, adult registration is $25, as you can see here, and children under 12 will be $10. But what you need to know is, because this deadline for registration is drawing close, there will be a registration table that'll be set up at the CIBC main branch this Saturday from 9 until 1. Yes, that's from 9 where registration can be done, because the deadline, a registration deadline, is Friday, October 31st at 3 p.m. So after 3 p.m. on the 31st, that's Halloween, you will not be able to register. And t-shirts also will be able to be collected on Wednesday, October 29th to Saturday, November 1st, which is the day before the actual event, because the event is on the Sunday. Yeah, so you want to make sure that you get registered, pick up your t-shirts between October 29th and Saturday, November 1st by 1 p.m. And should you want to donate to this, the Cure, Walk for the Cure, you can do so at CIBC. And please note that all donations from this walk will go to benefit the Cayman Islands Cancer Society. So for a worthy cause. And again, instead of just going for brunch on a Sunday, why not start walking and just go right into a nice brunch afterwards, and you do all of those great things. Yeah, it's a feeling. It's been a while for me. I will possibly be there. Yeah, I need to walk anyhow. And this evening, since we're on the topic of breast cancer awareness, there is a meeting. I have been pushing this for the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens that's going to take place at 7 o'clock at the Boddingtown United Church Hall. And we will be having a guest speaker. That's Dr. Natalie Sharp. She's a medical oncologist from Doctors Hospital. She will be present this evening and giving us some highlights on that. Yeah, so I encourage you to make sure you go out and support this and everything else that is happening around us. Let's see what's actually taking place anyhow, with all that's going on around us, and let you know that we aim, as we help go with this breast cancer awareness, I'm making you know that I will be featuring a gentleman this evening who will be joining me for a short interview so that we can get a glimpse into it, hearing it from a man's perspective. Yes, because not far too often we do not hear from our men. And I will call this segment Breaking the Silence, a man's journey through a breast cancer scare. And I'm hoping that you will stick with me for that episode. I'm just waiting for that interview, hoping he can join me here. Here we go. Here we go. Let's go. Let me just send the link over just in case one is having problems. I will be sharing stats with you as well. And there we go. There we go. Yes, good evening. But it's a pleasure. Hi, Miss Rose. How are you? Good to have you here with us. And for all of you who are joining me, it is always good to have you here. But yes, we are breaking that silence, hearing a man's journey. And I will, in this special segment, honor in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. While, you know, most of the spotlight really falls on women, today I will be sharing and sharing a light on a story that reminds us breast cancer doesn't discriminate where gender is concerned. And I'll be joined momentarily by a gentleman, a brave gentleman, who discovered a lump in his breast and faced the fear of the unknown. Now, thankfully, it was not malignant, but his journey is a powerful wake-up call to men everywhere. And I am waiting for my guests to join me here. But yeah, so it'll be interesting. It's a pleasure to see you, Miss Rose. Yes. But yeah, while I wait for my guests to join me in the studio, you know, just to, oh, they're here. They're here. You gonna pull your camera down a little bit for me, young man? No. Yeah, there we go. Well, without further ado, it is my pleasure to share with you and hear a story from a man's perspective. Before I bring this gentleman in the studio, from a global perspective, did you know that in 2025, an estimate of 2,800 men in the United States will be diagnosed with invasive breast cancer, and 510 men will die from it? Now, a man's lifetime risk of developing breast cancer is about 1 in 726. Because breast cancer is often seen as a woman's disease, men may ignore symptoms, leading to what can be perceived or is a later stage diagnosis and worsened outcomes. When caught early, the 5-year survival rate for localized breast cancer is 99%, highlighting the importance of early detection. But when we look in the Cayman Islands context, we got organizations such as the Breast Cancer Foundation of the Cayman Islands that runs year-round awareness programs, including tailored sessions for schools, churches, and corporate groups. And these cover breast health, self-examinations, and myths about breast cancer. We see what the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens is doing this evening at 7 o'clock. They're bringing experts there for all of the gift certificates that they give out, for all the supports that they actually offer. We are blessed to be in a jurisdiction like this. And we noticed as well that in October of this year, the Ministry of Health, Environment, and Sustainability sponsored $15,000 to support the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens breast cancer and diabetes awareness initiatives. Congratulations to them. We also see local campaigns that emphasize the breast cancer affects both men and women. And the more we talk about it, the more we get that more ease and openness, and it's not stigmatized. And then we can encourage everyone to report unusual changes like lumps or even inflammation. So yeah, but here we are, we're still grappling behind the 8 ball because without a cancer registry here in the Cayman Islands, true data remains unknown. But without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome, first time ever on the Sabrina Speaks show. Ta-da! Good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Mrs. Speaks.
It is a pleasure to have you here with us. And please introduce yourself. And I know for sure that you're a professional, you're frontline, one of those uniform services that I actually say thank you for your service a lot just before starting the Sabrina Speaks episode. And from being in the front lines to your love of dogs, playing pickleball, and even Ludi, just to name a few, including listening to music and taking part in community initiatives. There's still a lot more that we need to know about you, but it's a pleasure to have you on Sabrina Speaks. And actually, as this segment is called Breaking the Silence, a man's journey through a breast cancer scare. It is a pleasure to have you. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. And good evening to your folks in Radio Land.
Yep. Now, Eric, take us back to the moment you first discovered the lump.
All right, so I want to say I think it was sometime last year, probably. I think it was sometime last year. And what it was me discovering a lump in my left breast. And pretty much mine, right? Didn't think it was anything. So I was like, I guess be the procrastinator. And I'm like, let me just watch it for a little bit, right? And see what would happen. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to create an alarm and made anybody panic, right? But at the same time, I was also wondering what it could be, what it was. Like the first thought that came back to my mind when I felt it was, I remember when I was younger, like maybe about 10, 11 years old, in my like adolescent years, going on to teenage years, like I had lumps in both my breasts. And I was told it was because of puberty, so it was nothing to be alarmed about. And with time, it went away. So I was wondering, like, what is it? What changes it that my body is going through now, which is causing this lump? And it was it's not like where I could say, well, okay, it seems normal. It was only in one, and it didn't hurt or anything. Like, had I not touched it, I wouldn't even realize it was there. And I only came to notice it while I was showering one day, and I felt it, you know, kept an eye on it for a while, probably a good month or two, and it was then one night, like laying in bed, I felt it and said to my wife, like, what was it? And then she was like, it's something I need to get checked out, and started giving me the whole spiel about it could be breast cancer, it could be this, it could be that. I'm like, okay, here we go. Just what I didn't want, right? The panic. So it went through series of me going to the doctor, checking it out, and getting a biopsy done. First, the doctor was like, doesn't. I went to an oncologist at the HSA, and he was like, doesn't really think it was anything, but just for the peace of mind and stuff, just let's settle, let's get it tested, let's get it checked to see what it is, because early detection, as they say, is key, right? It's better to know what it is as early as you possibly can. So this led to me going to the HSA, and there was like some preliminary tests before we got to the biopsy. And I remembered when I went to the HSA I was recommended to do a mammogram. And of course, it's not every day you get up and hear a male doing a mammogram. So when I went there to get it done, I was actually a bit taken aback, because I got the referral and went to get the mammogram done, and the guy registering me was like, "You sure it's a mammogram? They could recommend you to do a mammogram. Mammogram is for females." I'm like, "No, bro, like it's a mammogram, right?"
And they said this to you there. They said this
yeah,
to you
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Because I guess it's not often that they see a man coming in to do a mammogram.
Yeah, and was I offended? Maybe a little, but nothing to write home about. But I was more taken aback now, and then I'm like, I guess he's also learning something, just like myself, because I've never heard of a guy doing a mammogram before. I've always heard of females doing mammograms. Never heard of males doing it. So I learned something new as well that day, right? And went in, got the mammogram done, and the results did come back and say, yeah, they saw something like a little mass in that area kind of thing, but they're not sure what it is. The only way to rule out the worst is by getting a biopsy done.
Now, what was this?
And
What was going on emotionally when you confirmed, okay, it's a lump, you've done the test? What emotionally, what was that like?
so
How did it
emotionally, I'm
impact
gonna,
you emotionally?
sorry,
How did it
I didn't
impact
hear.
you emotionally? Mhm.
Yeah, so like emotionally, to say it didn't affect me in one way or the other, yes, it did. But I think I I masked my emotions in that moment because I was dealing with a lot. I just had a friend that died the year before from breast cancer, and then I had a close family member who was diagnosed with breast cancer as well. And the last thing I wanted to know is, okay, I have a very close family member dealing with that situation. I want to be
Mhm.
dealing with it as well,
Mhm.
right? Because I was more of a support system for that family member. So I didn't want to say, here I am giving support, but possibly I may need support also. But emotionally, I didn't say it took a toll on me at all.
Mhm.
Like I know it was there and it was something to be concerned about, but I didn't get to the stage where I was in a panic or anything. I was remaining positive, hoping for the best, expecting the worst, but at the same time just being positive right through. And I think my personality and my whole mindset, in terms of how I look at certain things, I'm not gonna say I'm the strongest person around because I do break just like anybody else, but I
Mhm.
I have my own coping mechanisms which I use to overcome certain things emotionally. So
Like your hobbies of singing.
yeah, I have different things. I go play pickleball. I'll go for a run. I'll go for a walk. So I have different things. I do listen music, find a good movie to watch, or what I do mostly just get myself all swamped up with work, and that does take my mind off of a lot. Because
Mhm.
when it's work time, it's work time. So that does ease my mind.
Right. Now, when it went to the actual biopsy and the test, and undergoing that, just waiting for the results, that must have been nerve wracking.
It was nerve wracking because I wasn't sure what the outcome would have been.
Hmm.
And as much as I was hoping for the best, I was also braced in for the worst, braced
Hmm.
in for what's to come. But I prayed about it and just left it in God's hands and said, well, if it's God's will, then so be it. If He brought me to it, He will bring me through it. So, like I said, I didn't get to the point where I was broken as it. I was still
Hmm.
with it. I was still mentally with it. Just know, okay, it's a possibility. There may be something, but there's a chance there may be nothing as well. So
Hmm.
I would say I cope very well.
Right. Now, in regards to the whole mammogram experience that led then to the whole biopsy, what was that like for a man who may be hearing about this and be like, how the heck do they do a mammogram on a male?
So what they did, I remembered going into the room where they would, I think it's the radiologist section, right? And I don't even remember the name of the machines, but it's two big machines. And what they did was pretty much I had to bring my chest as close as possible to the machine, and then
Hmm.
this thing, the equipment would then it's motorized. It would then just come
Hmm.
in pretty much
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
get the image of what's inside, right? So
Hmm.
that's what it was. So yeah, it wasn't anything I would say a guy or a male for that matter should be afraid of or be
Hmm.
scared if it should come to the test where you would have to get yourself checked out because I mean our bodies talks to us, right? Like
Hmm.
it doesn't speak English, Spanish, or French, or speaks to us verbatimly, but our body speaks to us by displaying different signs or symptoms,
Hmm.
and it's for one to know their body to know when something is off
Hmm.
from when it's the norm. If you
Hmm.
get what I'm saying. So the whole
What was
mammogram
the?
experience was a first. Like I said,
Hmm.
I I had no idea males did mammograms as well. So that was
Right.
that was very shocking to begin with
Now
at
the
first. So then
now the
I
biopsy.
know No, I do
Go
understand
ahead.
what it means when a female is getting a mammogram done, and I know firsthand what that feels like. The
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
biopsy was, I would say, that was like the most hurtful part of it, but thankfully, the the staff that did the biopsy for me, they treated me really well, I must say, and they had gotten the area numbed up for me as well, so I didn't feel it was pain free to say the least. Like really, I
Okay.
didn't feel anything. Had I not known something was done,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have known at all.
Right. Right.
Thankfully, yeah, and it was like going in with that like they went in with with needles to pull the sample out so they could extract it and then send it off to a laboratory to get tested.
Mm-hmm.
Afterwards, I was, cleaned up nicely, bandaged, and they gave me painkillers and stuff. I was off from work for a couple of days as well because
Mm-hmm.
they recommended me not doing anything too strenuous. So I had to
Right.
just chill and relax, which was a bit hard for me, but I had to do it.
And certain people definitely didn't push the issue. They made sure that they take care of you. Yeah, but looking at from diagnosis to testing while waiting, how has this whole discovering of a lump make you look at your body even differently? And what changes have you made to your lifestyle ever since getting this scare, being aware that you have a close family member that's battling this, and we are surrounded by friends who, for we're just thankful that you got a good result back. But you rightfully said, listening to your body, and the scare was real. How has that made you look at life from not fear of the unknown to reality? And wow, you've gotten a good result.
So what it has definitely allowed me to do or made me pay more attention to it now is like trying to live a more active and healthy lifestyle. Like pay attention to what you eat, be more active, try to do more
Hmm.
physical exercises, just try to be active overall.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, I can say as a man, don't let your ego, where men were taught to be the strong one, we're taught to be the, the, the macho person, right? But like I said, early detection is key. So listen to your body when it speaks. Try to get out there and figure it out. Go to the doctors as often as you should, and listen to the doctor. I just went to see my doctor last week. It was just for a general checkup though, and it wasn't in
Hmm.
regards to anything previous, just an annual physical. And thankfully, I mean, I'm not perfect. I still have a lot more work to do in certain areas, but I'm okay.
Okay, good, good. Now, what message would you give to other men who might ignore symptoms or even feel embarrassed to say, well, something is going on, that's a female issue? What advice would you give? Would you share?
From a man's perspective, I would say definitely just look at it as it's a female issue. Sickness doesn't know genes. I don't think they specify, sorry, not genes, gender. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think illnesses are gender specific. Some may be gender specific, but for the most part, an illness is an illness. And the same illnesses that affects male does affect females and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So from a man's perspective and having gone through it, I would say definitely do not be afraid to go to the doctor. Get yourself checked out. If you see something that's outside the norm, something that doesn't look the way it used to look or feel the way it used to feel, don't wait too long and procrastinate. Definitely go to see a doctor. Explain to them, tell them what you're feeling. The only way you can be healed is by you divulging what is exactly wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the
Mm-hmm.
doctors may have their ways and means of figuring out certain things by asking certain questions or getting certain tests done, and based on the results, they can tell what's wrong, or they can, you know, the process of elimination begins, and they can narrow it
Mm-hmm.
down to okay, maybe it's this, that, or the other. But unless you really open up and speak as to what's really going on with you,
Mm-hmm.
then you will not be healed, and you'll be living with something that you the longer you take to deal with it will only make matters worse.
Right, right, right. Now I see Shadden McLaughlin has made a comment for women, check your breasts 1 week following your monthly cycle, and for men, check them at the same time every month. For you, you noticed based on in what you said earlier that there was a deformity, like one breast was different than the other, and then that led then to pains. But what really caught your attention to just, I gotta say something?
So it wasn't, like I said, unless I touched it or you felt it, you would, like, if I took unless I took your hands and say touch it or let you feel it, you wouldn't know it was
Mm-hmm,
there.
mm-hmm,
Like unless I touch it myself, I wouldn't know it was there. I
mm-hmm,
didn't know at all that something was wrong because I didn't feel anything at all. It was just me showering, like I said, and then felt the lump
mm-hmm,
and went to get it checked out. And it was there for a while. It was there for quite a while. I want to say probably at least a month or two before I vocalized anything at all. I had it and just kept it. It may have been even longer, a bit, probably a
mm-hmm,
bit longer. And I just didn't say anything. I was like, okay, it's not hurting me. I don't feel anything odd, but it was just the reality. One day, I was like, okay, you know what? I lost a friend to breast cancer. Like I said, the year prior, I had a
mm-hmm,
family member that was dealing with it at the time, still dealing with it, and I started hearing whispers or one two things about breast cancer in male. I didn't know that was a thing until, I'm going to be honest, probably like last year or two is when I realized that males breast cancer is actually real in men as well,
mm-hmm,
right? And but to be honest, I wasn't thinking breast cancer. I was just thinking something is off. I don't know what it is, but
mm-hmm,
I had not gone to that stage as yet where I was like, oh, this is breast cancer. No, I was
mm-hmm,
like, okay, there's a lump. It's in one, not in the other. Something is off. Need to get it checked out. And it was at that point, and like I said, thanks to the advice of someone dear to me, I went to the hospital and then got it
mm-hmm,
checked out.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now,
Yeah.
since finding the lump and you're assisting now, you're another family member that is in it. We have friends, your friends around us. What does Breast Cancer Awareness Month mean to you now? Because it's you are able to celebrate because you got a positive response when those samples came back that it was not cancerous, it wasn't malignant. But I'm quite sure after that scare, now you're assisting a family member with it, you're there. What does Breast Cancer Awareness Month mean to you now?
It just makes you, for me, it makes you look at life differently in general, especially when, I mean, you get up every day and you hear about cancer. You heard about that this one died from cancer, and this one is sick with cancer, right? But and you know it's serious, but until it really hits home is when you really realize what it
Mm,
is, and then you have a different outlook at that point, right? So for me, breast cancer awareness month, it's sad that we only take 1 month, but I get it. We take this 1 month to observe breast cancer,
mm,
but I think it's something that we should, as persons, as individuals, we should look into it not just in October, but year round, because it won't choose a specific time or period when it will affect you,
right,
right? I
right.
think I think we all should just keep going to the doctors, just keep getting your test done. Don't be afraid of what it is. And I know it's nerve wracking when someone gets that diagnosis.
Mm,
I totally can just imagine and I understand quite well what it feels like. But those persons that when they get their diagnosis, I think the biggest thing for them is having a good support system around. It's knowing that you have friends or family member who you can rely on, who will be there for you to hold your hand throughout the journey and carry you through, because it's not an easy road.
right.
I've seen what it can do to people. I've seen it firsthand, and it's for us to really take our health seriously and pay more attention to our health. listen to our body and listen to our body when it speaks.
Definitely. Well, I want to just thank you so much for being so candid and very professional as well. Of course, it was hard doing both roles. But any final words of encouragement or advice would you share with our viewers? We are seeing Shatton, who was featured here on another special episode before one of our shows, who's thanking God, blessings, Eric. It was the most terrifying call that she's ever received. In her case, she has been 3 times diagnosed. And, we're seeing more comments coming in here from Donna. Thanks, Eric, for being so brave to speak in this regard. And this is why it's important that we hear that from a male's perspective. I think Eric can be very blessed to say that he caught it despite him keeping it to himself maybe a little longer. Wait is not the way to go. And the Lord smiled at you, Eric. And for those men who are out there, just like how you found it, there's nothing wrong with standing in the shower and doing exactly what you did to find yours. But you are brave, you are strong, and I feel that this journey may have actually put you through it, not knowing what you were about to face with a very close family member right now. And you have been there, you've seen it. You have been in institutions where you're seeing people walking in, and even some who don't walk back out. But thank you. Damian Henry is sending you a fist bump. Thank you for being so brave, for being so candid. We need more advocates like yourself from especially the men's perspective, because it is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but there are other cancers like prostate cancer, you have colon cancer, and men tend to not go to get tested early enough. I mean, in your case, you found it in your breast or a lump in your breast. But the overall encouragement that you're giving right now isn't just limited to just breast. It was what you experienced, but what would be your public appeal and cry to men as a whole when it comes to just being proactive about their health?
So like I said earlier, right, like men, we're taught to be strong and oftentimes we allow our egos to get the better of us. But your life is worth more than your ego. Like there's nothing wrong with you asking for help. There's nothing wrong with you crying. There's nothing wrong with you saying you're scared. Sometimes you have to put the ego aside and deal with what's in front of you. Deal with your health. Deal with your life. Do self checks. Ask questions. Even if you don't want to speak to everyone and anybody about it, there must be that one family member, or one friend, or someone you can confide in. You can speak to. Get the support that you need. Talk. Find someone. Find an outlet. There must be someone, if it's even that one person. But definitely get your checkup. Do your self checks. Know your body. Look out for the signs. Look out for the abnormal signs that you're seeing. Listen to when your body whispers to you in its different ways that it does. Because, like I said, our body talks to us. It's just for us to understand the language that it's speaking.
Well, thank you. I would say, so much. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, no, I was just going to finish up and say, like, it's just for us to, just go out there, speak to the doctor, go get checked, because you never know. And it's better to detect it early when it's in an early stage than when it's more advanced, and it complicates things more, makes it more harder.
Well, Mr. Turner, it has been a pleasure hosting you on this episode of Sabrina Speaks, in this special edition of Sabrina Speaks, as we honor Breast Cancer Awareness Month here, and this is international, and seeing it from a male's perspective. I must say that I'm very proud of you. I have seen some changes in your lifestyle. I have seen some changes in even what you are putting in yourself where diet is concerned. And I'm just hoping that you will definitely register to be on that walk, run. No pressure, none whatsoever. But I want to thank you for sharing your story, for being so open. And, it has been a pleasure hosting you. And for those of you, I'm going to do it. Mr. Eric here is my husband. Yeah. So I just had to get through that. But yeah, no pressure whatsoever. But honestly, I am proud of you. I'm proud of you for coming on. I'm proud of you for being a voice for so many men and being able to share your experience with the world. And I will continue to keep tabs on you.
I heard you.
Anyhow, take care. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
All right.
Pleasure to have
Thank you.
you on.
Thanks.
Sure. Now, if you think that is not weird, yeah, you know what that's like. But I want to honestly thank you, everyone, for commenting where you separate your roles. And that was real. That was real. And it was nerve-wracking for me. But the important thing is that we get the message out. And this evening, a gentle reminder, 7 o'clock, breast cancer awareness meeting. Location is at the Boddentown United Church Hall. For an informative evening dedicated to raising awareness about breast cancer. Everyone is welcome. Their guest speaker will be Dr. Natalie Sharp, medical oncologist from Doctors Hospital. That takes place this evening. Compliments of the Lions Club of Tropical Gardens as we continue our Breast Cancer Awareness Month recognition. Good evening, caller. You're live on Sabrina Speaks. Now what you get. Mm-hmm. 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 Yep, that's right. Mm-hmm. I can check you afterwards, okay? No, I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm coming as soon as I'm off. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. Well, welcome to those of you who are just joining us, and I know a number of you tune in at different segments of the show because of work demands, and so forth. But the whole impetus of today's show was once we got persons who are willing to share their candid stories with us as a way of information and being motivation to persons who may be going through cancer or know someone who is going through it. You may be a caretaker, a partner, or even someone who has navigating cancer. You're welcome to share your stories here. And I feel that as we honor breast cancer Awareness Month here, you will see more persons come on once they are available. But let's go into the crooks and cracks of today's episode. And this segment now, we're going to go into what I want to do is like a civic explainings segment where you are hearing now the talks about cabinet grants of Caymanian status. And based on what feedback I have been hearing or what comments I have been hearing, there are a lot of misconceptions, there are a lot of misunderstandings. And you have asked for me to do a day or an episode that we zoom in on immigration. And I felt then that today was quite fitting to do that for you because this topic now is very topical, knowing that Cabinet does have powers under the Immigration Transition Act of 2022 revision, that they have powers. That section 26(1)(e), and let me get it up here for you. I even have the application form that I can show you the requirements for that application. And under 26(1)(e) of the immigration law, it pretty much empowers the board. I'm going through very quickly just to get it up here on this date, on the thing. Under this section of the immigration law, for the sake of those and not me just saying it, I'm reading it for you. 26(1)(e) reads, and this is part 5 of the provisions related to Caymanian status. 26(1)(e) says, a person shall, for purpose of this act, be deemed to possess the right to be Caymanian if, subsection E, the cabinet acting on the recommendation of the Caymanian Status and Permanent Residency Board grants such rights to the person, for the grant is subsequently ratified by the Cayman Islands Parliament. So what you heard on the floor of Parliament yesterday was, even though cabinet approved it, they said yes, okay? The grant must be ratified by Parliament, which is why the Honorable Minister Michael Miles delivered it yesterday on the floor of Parliament. And that is why it had to be ratified. So really what transpired is that the actual act of granting the status took place in cabinet, but in order to ratify it, it has to be tabled in Parliament. Save that this is subsequently ratified by the Cayman Islands Parliament, save that the cabinet shall not make more than 4 such grants in any calendar year. And the person shall continue to possess and enjoy the right to be Caymanian unless and until the person loses it under Section 33. Now, that is where I heard a lot of you then were commenting, well, how can it be lost? That is forever. And in an earlier episode of Sabrina Speaks, I went through terms in which it was lost or could be lost. And there you have it under Section 33, because I'm as blind as a bat. I gotta pick this up for me. 33 says, revocation of the right to be Caymanian. The right to be Caymanian granted by the board may be revoked where the holder has supplied false or misleading information in a material particular to the board, where the holder has ordinarily resided outside the islands for a period of 5 years and can no longer be said to be settled in the islands. C, where the marriage of the holder, being the spouse of a Caymanian, is deemed by the board to have been a marriage of convenience. CA, where the civil partnership of the holder, being the civil partner of a Caymanian, is deemed by the board to have been a civil partnership of convenience. Or D, where within 3 years of the grant of the spouse of the civil partner, a Caymanian of the right to be Caymanian under this or any earlier law, the marriage is or civil partnership of the holder, in the opinion of the board or director of work, has broken down. 2, has declined to the point where the parties have separated as a result of a decree of a competent court or a deed of separation, or no longer subsists. It further goes on to the revocation of the right to be Caymanian, subsection 2, the holder of the right to be Caymanian by entitlement under this act under any ambiguous provision in an earlier law. A, may lose the right where the holder has not been legal resident in the islands for a period of 7 years immediately before reaching the age of 18 years. And subsection B, shall notify the director of work forthwith of the relevant circumstances involving that person's legal and ordinary residence in the islands. Willful failure to do so is an offense. Now, the board may, by order, divest any person who has been granted the right to be Caymanian under Section 28 of the Caymanian Status or Caymanian Status under any earlier law of such right or status, if it is satisfied that the grant was obtained by means of fraud, false representation, or the concealment of any material fact with respect to such order. Subsection 3A of the said law reads, The board shall, by notice, inform the person affected of the order of that person's right to appeal to the Immigration Appeals Tribunal as provided in this Act. Subsection B, if the person affected is aggravated by the order, the person may subject to Section 21 appeal to the Immigration Appeals Tribunal against the order. And in the event of there being no appeal, or if an appeal is disallowed, the board shall notify the Director of Work of the order and shall cause notice of the order to be published in a gazette. Subsection 4. Now, any person who's having possessed the right to be Caymanian ceases by virtue of Section 1 to 3 to possess or to be deemed to possess the right to be Caymanian shall, for the purpose of this Act, be treated as if that person had never acquired, possessed, or enjoyed the right to be Caymanian, and the provisions of this Act shall apply and have effect accordingly. Now, 5 says, nothing in subsection 1 to 4 shall have effect so as to preclude a person who has, by virtue of such subsections, ceased to possess the right to be Caymanian from applying to the board for the grant of the right under Section 28. And then it goes on, and this is the part, revocation on conviction, okay? Where the grantee, meaning the person who's granted the status of the right to be Caymanian or Caymanian status under this or any earlier law, is convicted by any court in the islands or elsewhere of an offense, 34 subsection A reads, for which the grantee, the person who's gotten the status, is sentenced for an immediate term of imprisonment for 12 months or more, other than for non-payment of a fine, and in respect of such of which conviction that person's right of appeal have been exhausted, or which in the opinion of the grantor was made possible by, facilitated by, or connected with the grant, the grantor may revoke the grant on that person's own motion. And where the court referred to in subsection 1 is a foreign court, the offense committed must have been an offense that would be recognized as an offense in the islands. Now, there are also provisions under this law. That's the revocation for conviction. And you've heard me say under Section 33, the revocation of the general rights to be Caymanian. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the only grounds that exist right now in our immigration legislation that can actually revoke somebody's license for the term status of revocation, unless the person under Section 35 has the status. There is a clause in the law that gives them the right to relinquish their approval, to give it up on their own accord. And that says, in respect of any rights granted under this part of 6, the holder may relinquish such rights of that person's own free will by advising the board or director of work in writing, and upon the relinquishment, that person shall cease to enjoy any of the rights associated with the grant. Now, I had to see the revocation under Section 34. I have up on the screen now. That's the only part. And then on further down, it says right to relinquish the grant under Section 35. So the case that is making it stir right now is, I hope you were able to understand that the cabinet, under their powers, Section 26(1)(e), that section of the Immigration Transition Act actually empowers cabinet to grant that status, limiting it to 4 in a calendar year. Now, you may say, well, how? Well, let's look at the actual application. Let's look at the actual application. There is one application, and I hope you're seeing it clear here on the board, on the screen. This is a general single application for the grant of Caymanian status as it is right now. You will notice at the very top, they have one application form that covers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways in which one person can get Caymanian status. Okay, so this single application form covers status on the grounds of descent, status on the grounds of naturalization. The same application covers status on the grounds of marriage, status on the grounds of surviving spouse of a Caymanian, and then you got cabinet recommendation, and you also have under section on the grounds of marriage and status on the grounds of naturalization where you've been here for 15 years or more. Okay, hold on, I gotta edit this. I'm having some problems with Instagram. Just give me a minute. I'm coming right back. Right here. Just let me go here. Yeah. So what you notice is that we are having all of those applications, and I'll tell you what the requirements are. My humble apologies here. Yeah, I'll tell you what those requirements are right now. And sorry for my Instagram. You're going to have a little blip there. Going to have a little blip, Instagram beep. Let me get the code. Yep. There we go. Let's hope that comes back up. Let's hope that solves the problem. So when you go further into this application, and I'm going to go straight through, you can see there's a page. And the first set of requirements is for the grounds of descent. Then naturalization on the grounds of section 28.3, on the grounds of civil partnership, on the grounds of surviving spouse, continuation after the age of 18, and then you have a recommendation by cabinet. Now that's the one that you want to hear about, right? When you go to that one, the requirements are clear. I'm just getting the right to be here for myself so that when I read this through to you, I am making sure that I have it here, right to be Caymanian. There we go. Okay, so going down to that requirement, that form, that checklist, because you would ask, what would one have to prove? It says checklist for the right to be Caymanian, grounds of recommended to cabinet. It says this is a summary of all the requirements, and what is needed is a cover letter. The form has to be done in duplicate. The applicant has to provide a certified copy of the applicant's birth certificate, accompanied by English translation if necessary, and evidence of birth of all related persons. Okay, this is recommendation. So certified copies of applicant's Caymanian connection birth certificates showing link to applicant with proof of such persons are Caymanians as applicable. And then there's also a section for dependent children that asks for certified copies of birth certificates or adoption orders in respect of any dependent children under the age of 18. Now, this is for information purposes, as outlined here in this requirement, and dependents cannot be included with the applicant's right to be Caymanian if approved. Okay, dependents cannot be included with the applicant's right to be Caymanian if approved. So what that means is that even though you're asked to declare your dependents, in this case, a spouse, child, or children, when the applicant is applying for Caymanian status, and this goes for any section, it's only the applicant that is granted the status. It doesn't work like permanent residence. When permanent residence is approved, it includes all of your dependents. They automatically get permanent residence as well. That's the difference with status, okay? So even though you're declaring them, they don't automatically get it. And remember, there's one part of the law that says what the board considers for the grant of Caymanian status. One of the things that they look for in considering the grant of Caymanian status is how much dependence they have as well. That shouldn't exceed 3. That's in some of the things that the board takes into consideration. This checklist also requires references, that the applicant provide a minimum of 3 references from persons who have known them for at least 3 years, along with proof that the referees are Caymanian. Okay? They must include proof of the referee's identity. So in addition to getting the reference, this specific application for all status application requires that you get a reference from Caymanians. It didn't say generational. It didn't say status holder. It says Caymanians as defined by the law. And I'll go back to that definition if you want me to. But for the purpose of how can one get a cabinet grant, it is important for me to tell you what the requirements are and break it down, okay? The original medical declaration cover letter, the medical cover letter may be no older than 1 year of submission of the application. So one has to go and get a full physical, and that physical, upon the time of submission, shouldn't be more than 1 year old. Also, if the applicant at the time of application is employed, it asks for an employment letter. And in that employment letter should include stating your position, length of employment, and salary. There's also a caveat that if you're not employed, you must state the name. If not employed, please state name in your cover letter. That doesn't make sense. If you're not employed, please state name in your cover letter. Anyhow, moving right along. Photographs. It says 1 still face with name on back and date of birth on the back of the photograph, okay? Proof of identity, certified copy of photo and information page of your passport. So that's your passport information page with your name, date of birth, yada, 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 okay? Police clearance, original, sign and seal, valid for 6 months only. Now, all certificates and documents, marriage, death, divorce, police clearance, etc., which are in a foreign language, must be accompanied with the English translation, and there's guidelines for that. Those are the requirements. Yeah. In the cover letter now, and I deliberately left that for last, the cover letter stating grounds under which the applicant is making the application, full stop. The letter should include details of any close affiliation and association with the island, its heritage and people. Clearly state the full name and relation of any close Caymanian connection. Provide any information that you consider supports your application with adequately demonstrate to the board why you are deserving of such recommendation. That's it. That's it. That's all that is required. And that's what it says right there. So for those of you who are hearing all of those things, the cabinet is empowered under 26(1)(e) to grant an application, but they can't just arbitrarily just go and do that. The person still has to apply through the Caymanian Status and Permanent Residency Board for it, and based on what is contained in their covering letter that says, I should be deserving of this, then the cabinet refers it up to the ministry, to the minister, then on to cabinet. What is presented then to the cabinet is exactly what is outlined in here: historical context, for cabinet to make the decision. Okay. Now, we can see clearly, because a lot of the topics around how status can be taken away is about the revocation clause. And as you heard from the law itself, it outlines the revocation procedures. And it's typically tied to fraud, misrepresentation, breach of conditions, living outside the jurisdiction for an extended period of time. And these are not arbitrary and require due process, okay? And even though there have been revocations, revocations are rare. And even so, they must follow legal thresholds, often involving courts and formal review. Hence, you heard me say that they have a right of appeal. But it would be interesting to hear your take on, do you think the public should be more visible into how Caymanian status is granted then in this case? Should cabinet decisions, let's say like these, be debated before ratification then? Because you heard it when it was signed, sealed, delivered, done pretty much. It was just a process on the floor of Parliament. I saw where the poll, Sandra put up a poll, and I'm interested to see what the result is, that many people were crying out that for all status applications, that part of being published in the newspaper should be done now. And based on the preliminary feedback is that people were asking for that to be done. So what does Cayman status really mean to you? And should cabinet have the sole discretion, or should there be public consultation of some sort, like what was alluded to earlier on about there be a debate before it's ratified? Or have you or someone you know applied for status, and what was that like? Or is there somebody you feel right now that could benefit from this because of their contributions to the society, have close Caymanian ties, that sort of stuff? Now, like, what questions would you have really for those? So it is quite interesting. And remember when I said about, let me put up the definition here. I keep scrolling up here. It's not a scroll. The definition of Caymanian is defined by the law for the sake and intent of this purpose. This is what I'm quite sure will be part of the whole reform. And Caymanian. Caymanian means a person who possesses Caymanian status under the repealed Immigration Law 2015 revision or any earlier law providing for the same or similar rights, and includes a person who acquired that status under Part 5. So when you go to Part 5 of that, that's your definition of who's a Caymanian. It pretty much tells you it's anybody who grants status under those sections. Grounds of naturalization, remember the 7 sections that I read out that were on top of the actual application form? Those are by way of acknowledgement, by way of entitlement, entitlement as it's defined here. So these are some of the things that you got: status as a right. Caymanian as a right means a child born on or after the 1st of January 2004, whether in or outside of the islands, at the date of whose birth at least one of the parents was settled in the Cayman Islands and was Caymanian. And you also have those who were born outside the islands after the 1st of January 2004, and at the date of whose birth at least one of that person's parent was Caymanian, otherwise by descent, or acquiring the status of Caymanian under Section 21 of the repealed Immigration Law of 2015, or under an earlier law conferring the same or similar rights. And then you have other types of Caymanian status where it is based on those persons who are here on the grounds of permanent residence, like I said earlier, and under the grounds of being a British Overseas Territory citizen. That is, let's say somebody being born in Bermuda or another BOTC, they're eligible for also applying for Caymanian status under ours because of the very mere fact that they were born in another BOT jurisdiction. But they have to meet two clauses. Just being born from a other British Overseas Territories country, for example, like Bermuda, in order for them to get Caymanian status, in order for them to get access to a Cayman passport, even though they are a BOTC from example purposes, Bermuda, they still would have to meet the 15-year threshold here in the Cayman Islands, legal and ordinary resident, and they would still need to apply for permanent residence when that time comes. So just being born in Bermuda, being a BOTC, because of the fact that we are also a British Overseas Territory jurisdiction, doesn't just allow them then to come here and just apply for Caymanian status because let's say they're 35 and they decide they don't want to stay in Bermuda, but because I'm a BOTC, I'm going to go to another British Overseas Territory country, Cayman Islands, and I'm going to apply for my status because I'm over the age of 18. They wouldn't qualify because the legal and ordinary resident of being here in the Cayman Islands would not apply. Okay. Now, we can go down all sorts of rabbit holes with that, but I just needed you to know under this section when we define Caymanian. So somebody getting Caymanian status on the grounds of descent, surviving spouse of a deceased Caymanian, on the grounds of naturalization, by entitlement, by grounds of marriage. Those 5 sections, or by recommendation by cabinet, they can all be references for anyone who's applying for status. That is the true definition of Caymanian status. Yeah. So when you look at the misconceptions that people may actually have, the reality is that there's a lot of misconceptions out there. But the reality is that, as I said earlier, cabinet's power is not arbitrary. And under this same section 26, 1E of the Immigration Transition Act, they may, not because it go to them that they have to, they may, the law says, cabinet may grant the right to be Caymanian only upon recommendation from the Caymanian Status and Permanent Residency Board. Okay. Now, one may say, well, why is the board doing that when they are tasked there to do their jobs? We can't speak on any case. I'm quite sure there was an exceptional reason, exceptional circumstances. Whether or not you and I are satisfied, the mere fact that cabinet granted it, they have that in their remit. They have that in their right under this section. Now, these grants, as we said, and I've beaten this up, because in the way in which it was granted, the status, it has to be ratified by Parliament, which makes it public. Remember, Parliament is the voice and the place of the people. Hiding that under a rug is doing a disservice, and it's diluting your very own democracy. And that is typically the status is being formalized through that order, okay, for that status. Another misconception is that once you get Caymanian status, it can never be revoked. Yes, it can, even though right now the temperature on the ground is that the people are not happy with the grounds of revocation or how it can be revoked. And status can be revoked under specific conditions, as I've read in the law, fraud, misrepresentation, breach of conditions, and you can see under the convictions, we have said that, or for the term in which it's talking about revocation, if you feel that that needs to be broadened, then this is now the time that you actually speak to your elected persons as we plan for this immigration reform. But revocation, as I said earlier on, is rare, and it has to still follow due process. Okay? Another misconception is that all Caymanian status grants go through the same process. No, they don't. There are multiple pathways, like I said, descent, through permanent residence, through recommendation to cabinet, grounds of marriage. And, even though cabinet grants are less common because it is only now 4 in a calendar year, they are reserved for exceptional contributions or circumstances. Okay? Whether or not you or I agree with it. Okay? Another misconception is that the public has no say in immigration reform. Well, we know that that's not true because now you're actually finding your voice. People are speaking. People are asking the questions. I'm seeing the questions come in. I'm hearing you in your public dialogue. And the reality is that the government is actually, and we heard that in the most recent campaigns, the cry for immigration reform. We had something called a white paper, but we never go there. That has to rewind and come again. And the next white paper, I'm hoping that will come to fruition, will be something of substance. And this is by no means being dismissive or being rude. I'm being very honest. It was not carrying out the wishes and the wills of the people for what was in earlier circulation. So let's hope that when the real white paper makes its way, that it will be a reflection of the cries in which we're hearing in our society. Another misconception that we're hearing is that cabinet grants are political favors. I heard that in not so many ways in a number of different formats today. And the reality is, while public skepticism exists, cabinet grants must meet legal criteria and are subject to parliamentary ratification. Transparency and accountability in this case are key concerns driving current reform discussions. So until the legislation actually change, you will always say stuff like that it's political favors, it's a friend of a friend, or only certain people will get it. And that's where, by right, the ratification should be for transparency. But what we're getting from people is that, why are we just hearing about it when it's being ratified? These types of applications, what I took away from the public discussions, should be those that are placed in the newspaper. And I'm eager to see the results of that QR code, that survey, that poll, as to where it comes. And let's hope that the powers that be are listening, and that some of these suggestions will actually be taken into consideration. So that's pretty much where we stand with that cabinet grant. And I'm hoping that there are key takeaways that you got from that. But your voice have power. Your voice has strength. And as we embark on revising our legislation, this is when you need to speak out and speak up. And if you don't feel as though you're being paid attention to, then something is wrong. At what point do you actually say, I need to be heard, or we have to do more to protect our identity? Because it's definitely being heard, it's loud, and I'm getting that you're not at all impressed. I am happy that I'm able to be in this position now, that I can actually share certain realities to you as it exists around what I know. And it is quite easy for me to actually just share this with you because it is important. Sometimes it may seem repetitive, but now you have an example or a real life played out that it's now time for you to understand, okay, now you're in tune because you have something to link it to. Having an off-topic conversation on something as important as this, you would not have paid much attention to it, but because it's topical, why I feel now it will resonate with you. You may say, well, then, what are some of the requirements then that Cabinet, since Cabinet is making the decision to approve or not approve after it's recommended to the board, what are their criteria? You see, exceptional circumstances, community participation, what that they've done. But then it delves into more as to when the application then goes to the board and is not recommended to Cabinet, matters for the board to consider in the course of processing an application for the right to be Caymanian. The board shall satisfy itself on a number of issues or things to consider that is in the law, okay? When the board is actually looking at these applications, hoping that when the application gets before them, that all the necessary criteria, as I read out the checklist, are complete when it goes before the board. When they actually get that application in the front of them, they are looking at these things before saying a yes or a no. Such grant would be in the public's interest, meaning they look at the person's, it's in the best interest of the country for this person to continue to be here. B, adequate consideration have been given to the number of dependents who would be entitled to reside in the islands or become Caymanian by entitlement should the application be granted. Remember I said that before? Even though they were asking for the birth certificates for dependents, it was clear that when the application for the status is granted, that the dependents don't automatically get it. But hold on, just for the sheer number of dependents under the consideration of this holder's application. Let me continue reading. C says, it would be in the interest of the islands to grant such application if the number of dependents becoming Caymanian by entitlement would be more than 3. So if you're coming in with a bag of children, 6, 5, 4, once it's over 3. And in this case, dependent doesn't actually, it would include a wife. Yeah. D also says, as a part of consideration, that the applicant has not committed an act of insolvency or bankruptcy, of being involved as a shareholder or director of any company or other entity which has been the subject of liquidation, especially where creditors have been adversely affected. So if they were involved in a business or anything like that, and the board is aware, that can actually go against them for consideration or something the board has to consider. E, the applicant, and this is where the reference coming now, is of good character and conduct. I stopped here because I said, who's going to ask an individual who is not going to give you a good character reference to write you a reference? Which is why I'm hearing the public outcry for pictures now to be placed in a public space, be it a website, similar to how you have the cause list for court for a period of time, so that the public is aware of who's applying for the right to be Caymanian in this case, and not just on character references from persons that, of course, would support you. Not someone that would speak not good things. And based on those type of persons, it would possibly be the truth. So yeah. And E2 says, has to that person's credit 3 good character references received by the board directly from 3 Caymanians, and has a clean criminal record and has not been involved with illegal drugs, has a clean criminal record, and has not been involved with illegal drugs. F, the applicant is of good health and does not suffer from any form of communicable or mental disease that would make that person a danger to the community. This is where they were asking for the medical cover letter. That includes a host of blood works, a physical with blood pressure, diabetes, past medical history, yada, yada, yada. And that the applicant, this is this G now, the applicant has not been involved in, organized, or engaged in any subversive political activity, nor has the applicant organized, caused, or promote racism or any illegal activity within the islands or elsewhere. Now, G is quite interesting because one would say that pertains to politics. The very nature of the word or, any illegal activity within the Cayman Islands or elsewhere, is like still separate and apart from political. Okay. H, the continued presence of the applicant and that person's family will contribute to the well-being of the islands. Again, we're still on terms for consideration for the grant to be Caymanian. I, the economic situation of the islands and the protection of persons already engaged in similar occupations have been duly considered. So let's say this person was in a industry that we have a lot of Caymanians already in. Once they become Caymanian, things for the board to consider, that's further diluting that industry or industries. So I'm a nail tech and I'm from wherever, and I'm applying for status, and I reached this far for status. The board can take into consideration that there's so much nail techs out there that I would be further disenfranchising other Caymanians. That's something they can continue. Or someone in the HR society, someone in the real estate industry. These are things for the board to consider, not granting someone. They have to take all of these things into consideration before they say yes or no. Okay. And J explains why. Because adequate consideration has been given to the desirability of granting the right to be Caymanian to applicants with different backgrounds and from different geographical areas, so that a suitable balance in the social and economic life of the Cayman Islands may be maintained. So there you go with persons from originally from one particular country. For a balance, all of those things are taken into consideration. Now, bearing in mind, these conditions for consideration is used as the same tools for all 7 of those applications that I pointed out. So it's the same grounds for consideration for even those who are married to Caymanians, those who are applying for status on the grounds of permanent residence, naturalization, spouse of Caymanians, and grounds of descent. Grounds of descent, yes, is a little different, but what I'm saying is it's the same terms and conditions that the board have to take into consideration when they're processing an application. Okay. And K, adequate consideration has been given to the desirability of retaining the economic resources of the islands in the control of Caymanians. That one is where you all are crying out for, saying, we can't grow this anymore. How long is a piece of string? Yeah. And then, of course, it outlines here in the law how these applications are applied. duplicate forms accompanied by the prescribed fee, and state whether or not the applicant wishes to be heard in person. That is also there. They may want to go before the board and ask for an audience before a decision is being made, because if they feel their case is exceptional, then they have a right under section 31C, state whether or not the applicant wishes to be heard in person. So, now in granting or rejecting an application under this section 28, the board shall deem to have acted administratively and not judicially. Where an applicant has been rejected, the applicant shall not be permitted to make any further application until after the lapse of 1 year from the date of the communication of the decision. And notwithstanding subsection 3, which is what I just read, where a person is qualified under any subsection of this 28 to apply for the grant of the right to be Caymanian and made an application under that subsection, the application was rejected, the person may apply at any time after such rejection under another subsection in section 28, under which the person is also qualified to apply. So let's say they applied on the grounds of marriage, whatever happened, that went so, but they are protected and they got naturalization and proved that they've either been living here for 5 years or 15 years, whatever. Because they would be coming back under a different section of the immigration law, they can come back again. Yeah. So I'm hoping that you're able to follow me in this, and I'm hoping that the silence is either headed to Clifton Hunter, or I'm just educating you that much that you understand exactly what is being shared here right now. So yeah, that is what your law actually says, what our Cayman Islands immigration law says at this current time. I went through the revocations. I went through the part where it says what the board has to take into consideration, and the right of appeal if someone is not satisfied with the decision of the board. And you've already heard it here that they're allowed to represent themselves, to have an audience before a decision is made. And of course, you need to indicate that in your cover letter when you file the application, so that you're signaling to the board, I just don't want you to grant this or consider it. I want to actually be there in person to actually speak for myself. And that is something that the board will honor or not. They have the right to deny, or they have the right to ask why. What is the exceptional circumstance that what we've asked for isn't sufficient for us to make a decision on your application without you having to come before us to explain. So these are what the grounds in which the board has to use to consider an application. And when you look, going back to the definitions, and I know I'm not scrolling on your screen, that's because I have it bolded or bigger, but I'm going to change it. Just give me 1 minute. When you look at the word dependent for the purpose of this application, or for the purpose of what we're doing here, dependent, let me get it here on your screen, which would be on page 9. I'm now on page 31. Let's go to page 9 for you, because I know you guys who are on your phones can zoom in. When you look at we're looking at the definition of dependent. Dependent under this law in relation to a person means the spouse or civil partner of that person, or one of the following relations of that person, namely a child, stepchild, adopted child, grandchild, parent, step-parent, grandparent, brother, sister, half brother, half sister, being in each case wholly and substantially dependent upon the person. Now, when you say wholly and substantially dependent on the person, it means that that person has no other means of supporting themselves, and that in this case, the person who's applying for the Caymanian status is the only person that's taking care of them. So all of those persons that named out is defined as dependent. Some of you were asking in regards to persons who find themselves here on work permits. And even though we're looking at status on the grounds of a cabinet grant, since I'm in the definition, a destitute person under this law means a person who is or is likely to be a charge on public funds by reason of mental or bodily ill health or insufficiency of means to support themselves and that person's dependents if they have any. So you're hearing some cases that persons have been jibbed out, they've been involved in some schemes and all that sort of stuff. That is the word in this context for this law of a destitute person. If they find themselves here and they don't have a job or they have been jibbed out of it, they can be deemed as a destitute person for its insufficiency of means to support themselves and the persons who are depending on them. So yeah, these are it's contained all in here. And sometimes I will encourage you to just go and read some of these things, as you may think that it's boring, but because we are actually getting in the frame of immigration reform as you have asked for, it is in your best interest, really, to know what the current legislation says now, so that you're able to understand or identify, like, for example, what are the requirements for those persons who are applying for permanent residence for being here for 8 years or more. When you look at the requirements for those, you would be able to see, well, okay, if they do this change and they do that, at the end of the day, it's going to make it harder. It's going to weaken it. If you don't know what the legislation states right now, anything can be fed to you. And that's why it's important for me to take my time with you to share this information with you at your request. The good thing about these podcasts is that even after I end my live, you can go back to them for additional information, or when it's time for you to actually, there may be something that sparked something in you and you may go back to it. Because when you look at part 6, which is on page 38, part 6, it tells you the different types of permanent residence. And I'm going fast here just to get to the page. 38, there you go. Permanent residence and extended residence categories. Let's go to the blind people page. That's my page. Okay. Categories of permanent residence. The Caymanian Status and Permanent Residency Board and Director of Work may grant the right to reside permanently in the Cayman Islands for the following non-Caymanian applicants. A, persons including their spouse and civil partners who have been legally and ordinarily resident in the islands for a minimum of 8 years. B, the spouse of a civil partner of a Caymanian. And C, a dependent of a residence and employment rights certificate who meets the requirements as set out in section 39. I will go down there. 2, the Director of Work may grant the right to reside permanently to the surviving spouse of a civil partner of a Caymanian under section 28(7), and persons of independent means, including their spouse or civil partners under section 42. In this part, unless the context otherwise requires a reference to the Director of Work in relation to the grant of permanent residence under 37 for residence and employment rights under 38 shall be constructed as a reference to anyone specifically designated by the Director of Work to perform their duties. And again, under another section of permanent residence, is a person who's a British overseas territory citizen by virtue of connection with the islands. Also by registration, by entitlement under the British Nationality Act of 1981. So you realize it's not the same immigration law that gives you naturalization. It's a total different piece of legislation. Or any act proceeding, amending or replace that act shall have the right to remain permanently in the Cayman Islands, and shall cease to have such rights where the person ceases to be a British overseas territory citizen, the person has, subsequent to the grant of the certificate, been ordinarily resident outside of the islands continuously for a period of 5 years, or acquired domicile other than a domicile in the islands unless the cabinet rules otherwise. You hear the power of the cabinet again? The cabinet is satisfied that the grant of the certificate was obtained by fraud, false representation, or the concealment of any material fact. You're seeing that coming up again. And that the person engages in gainful occupation or any trade or business without the permission of the Work Permit Board, the Business Staffing Plan Board, the Caymanian Status and Permanent Residency Board, or the Director of Work, or the person falls into one of the categories enumerated in Section 51. So when you look at the one for those who are legal and ordinarily resident for 8 years or more, a person who's been here in the islands for a period of 8 years or more, and that does not include those persons who have applied for permanent residence. This is the extended clause now, as a person of independent means, the holder of residence certificate for retirees, the holder of certificate for direct investment or direct investment holders dependent certificate, or the holder of residence holders dependent certificate, the holder of a certificate of permanent residence for persons of independent means, or a person who was granted permanent residence under any earlier law or circumstances analogous to paragraph A and B. Now, these are some of the extended permanent residence that you're hearing about, that based on the amount of investment, your income, that some of them will not necessarily be given the right to work, therefore they're not competing. But then direct investment was one that substantive business presence was the one that I read in the regulations that says all they had to do was to employ a minimum of 4 people in 9 months in a year, and all those persons were legal and ordinarily resident. It did not say that they had to be Caymanian. These are all different types of permanent residents, and a lot of these attract some very, very, very high fees. And they're saying for these, they may apply in a prescribed form and manner to the board or the director of work for permission for themselves, that person's spouse of the civil partner, and person's dependents, if any, to reside permanently in the islands. As such application shall be accompanied by the prescribed application fee, issue fee, dependent fee, and annual fee with respect to the first year. So all of those monies are collected up front. They're held almost like in an escrow account, and the only fees of all of these that stays as an income for WORC is the application fee, the filing fee. Work permit fees, bonds, all the other approval fees, that goes to central government. So when you talk about revenues being made and you deal with that, you look at what revenues are coming into core government and what revenues are coming into the respective, in this case, for this topic now, on immigration WORC books, the only money where revenues are concerned, income for them, will be based on the filing fee. So your work permit fee of $100 or $75, or in the case of the filing fee of $250 for Caymanian status, That's all that's going on the income collected for those applications that will be on the books for WORC. The rest of the approval fees then goes to central government, to core government overall, even though you may say, but Sabrina, it's all government's money. But they have to show you that these, even though they're not working independent, they have to show that can be a part of the metrics to see how much applications are being received as well. And remember, unless an application is refused, those are the only things are refunded, and sometimes based on the length of time, only 50% is refunded back. Permanent residence for 8 years that is not approved, what goes back is the issue fee and the full 1 year work permit fee and any dependent fees that may be included. Yeah. So that's important takeaway when it comes to our budgeting, that we're looking at all of these things now. And each year that this permanent residence is approved, all of those fees now goes into the national income of government. So I want to leave you with that, because it is quite sobering when you think of it, that all of this plays into the bigger part. I will do an exclusive show on work permits so that you see the different types of work permits, and I'll break down exactly some of those more expensive permanent residence one as well. But I think based on the conversation that has been had, work permits deserve an independent show to see what is in consideration. It may not take up an entire 2-hour show, but I think going through it so that you know what the boards are looking at in consideration. Some of us are feeling that it's not fair, that even when Caymanians apply for jobs, I've heard a case, interesting that we talk about work permits. I heard there was a case where a lady applied for a job, and obviously it was a work permit renewal. And in the company's response to the individual that applied for the job, they said, you were not successful on your interview. But the person was never interviewed. They never got called for an interview. Now that information, because they've communicated that to that individual, Caymanian, is going to go on immigration records to say, well, see, we interviewed Sabrina Turner, but on her interview, we were not pleased. Yes, she met the requirements, but on her interview, she was not actually satisfied. She didn't meet her satisfaction. This is where the board needs to do their due diligence, because in that case, if the board doesn't call the persons named, and that's only if that application accompanied the resume and the interview notes, which they should, the board can do some due diligence and call those persons that they've declared there to find out exactly, in this case, which was easy, were you interviewed? And if you were, when? Because that one particular case that I am speaking about just day before yesterday was brought to my attention. The Caymanian was never interviewed. They just got told they didn't get the job because they didn't do well on the interview. They acknowledged that they met the requirements, but they didn't like the interview. How are they going to not like the interview when what is being said is that they never had an interview? So my advice to the individual was, you have the right to write to the work permit board and copy the business staffing plan board, because they weren't aware of as to whether or not this company had a BSP, to say, look, I got this letter. Here's a copy of the letter. Yes, I applied for this job title or this position in this organization, but I got a letter saying that they weren't pleased with the interview. At no point in time was I interviewed. I'm just flagging this. I'm just bringing this to your attention. That's the reality of what's happening out here. So everybody has their jobs cut out for them, and especially when they're on these boards. But yeah, there you have it. I'm going to end here this evening. I hope that you took away a lot of information here. I know it's a lot to digest with everything going on with Parliament, with all the discussions. And immigration is never an easy topic. But like I said, eventually you will appreciate these episodes when immigration becomes topical. And I am quite sure I'll have more feedback and participation from you once we get into the immigration reform, if it ever sees the light of day, where public participation, whether or not we see a white paper, these talks will become more easily digested. But as I close tonight, I hope that I was able to answer a lot of your questions. I hope that I was able to clarify a lot of misunderstandings. But we're hearing the cry, and it's a strange cry. It's really a deep cry from the heart of, I heard it in people's voices this morning. And from the heart of people who are watching, who are waiting, and who are just wondering, will we ever see true immigration reform that is with dignity, balance, but really does exactly what immigration legislation say it's going to do to protect and preserve us? So we're calling, not whispering, not even murmuring, but calling for accountability, for leadership that is not performative, if that's a word, but principled, for decisions to be made that are not just cloaked in ceremony, but rooted in service, not for friend or foe. And that Cabinet's recent grant of Caymanian status, even though it has stirred more than headlines, more than podcast talks, it has stirred the soul of the nation. And maybe because you're just now waking up, but it was always in the law. And not because of who received it, please let's make it clear, but because of how little the people understood of the process. That's not just a legal issue. The topic and the cry for proper immigration reform is becoming a civic crisis. And we cannot keep governing in the shadows and expecting trust in the light. We cannot keep governing in the shadows and expecting trust in the light. The cry for immigration reform is not new, but it is now urgent. It is now fair reform, balanced reform, reform that respects human rights. And as I said earlier on, the dignity of every person who calls these islands home. So we must stop the theatrics, stop the favor for friend and foe, and stop the erosion of public confidence. Because every time this happens, our society begins to boil more and more as they feel they continue to be played and tricked. Think of the Constitution, not as a document, but as a promise. Think of our children, not as future voters, but as future stewards. And think of our country, not as a playground for power, but as a place where justice lives. Familiarity is not enough. Not even legacy is enough. People are watching. It has been my pleasure bringing you another episode of Sabrina Speaks. Yeah, I want to wish everybody a beautiful night. Remember, congrats goes out to all of the graduates of the Clifton Hunter High School that's about to start at any second. Until tomorrow, stay safe, be blessed, and have a good night. Until tomorrow.
That's a wrap for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks. Thank you for tuning in and for being part of the conversation. Remember, the dialogue doesn't stop here. Stay engaged, stay informed, and most importantly, stay empowered. We'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m., same time, same place, right here on CMR TV and radio, where your voice matters and your truth is heard. Until then, Cayman, take care of yourself and each other.
That's it for today's edition of Sabrina Speaks, where your voice matters, your story counts, and your truth is always welcome. Join us weekdays from 5 until 6:30 p.m. right here on CMR TV as we dive into the topics that matter most to you. Catch the show live or on demand at cmrtv.com. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram so you never miss a moment. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and always speak your truth.